Hello, and yes, I'm coming back to the Pentland Hills, and I guess I'm coming somehow back to social valuation, although my initial idea was giving a bit of a broader picture instead of the results of our social valuation. And one of the main messages to tell, and you will see that soon, is that they are now developing more and more synergies between our little social valuation project and what is happening right now in the region. Okay, just you see that right here with all the authors, which are also partly not from the Operas project, but include the planning agency and the Scottish Natural Heritage. Just as a quick reminder, Katja did a user survey and interviewed many people, and part of that survey was, part of the results of the survey were these clusters of preferences for development in the Pentland Hills Regional Park. And but apart from that, she also asked a lot of questions that directly related back to the questionnaires or the surveys the regional park had done earlier in 2006 and even earlier in the 1990s. So they have got something like also information just for them, you could basically say. These are the major types of people with the preferences for landscape management, and I just want to quickly show you, many people have seen it already, but not everybody. We have here these types of preferences in the very top that we got out of that visual tool. We've got the landscape scores, the average landscape scores for the people that belong to certain clusters. And now the next step for Katja's work is whether the social valuation, which means rating and allocation of points to different approaches to social valuation of ecosystem services, could actually explain these clusters. And she's going to present that at the Antwerp conference in September, so I'm not going into detail here. Good. As I just said, efforts that have started independently, more or less, or have started independently, are now neatly coming together, and that not only for operas. So we have got the Scottish government that tries to steer also environmental protection and nature conservation are big issues there. And then we have got administration, which is, in our case, the Scottish Natural Heritage is the main agency for that. And here's the Operas project. And finally, it all comes now together in the Pentland Hills, where justification of expenses for park management more and more is trying to use the ecosystem service approach and quantification of how it's used. And this work is also, we planned to provide a basis for upcoming management plan, yes? Okay, and big steps towards this arrangement as we have it now, the land use strategy, which had been finished in 2011 in Scotland, and in 2012, of course, the kickoff of Operas, and then in June and December 2013, we had two scoping events where a lot of stakeholders from Scotland came together to actually identify some of the case studies that we have heard about earlier on also today. So this is the Inner Falls, and there is also Samantha's work is partly building on these efforts back then. And while we were happily conducting interviews and not having any more to do with all these processes, the Scottish Biodiversity Strategy came out, and in the end of 2014 there has been that event where people from all these, from the government, also from natural heritage, and then other stakeholders came together in an Operas event where we had the chance to show also some first results. And now in 2015, there was a revision of the Scottish Biodiversity Strategy and a route map, and that initiated that Scottish Natural Heritage actually incorporated ecosystem services in their corporate plan. And as the formula was launched, I just wanted to say that, And finally, in 2016, Scottish Natural Heritage got even more active, and they said we want to have pilot studies that show how we can use ecosystem services for conservation, basically, and the use of natural resources. And then one of the guys who've earlier been in some of the events realized, oh yes, there was that study in the Pentland Hills, and he said, well, let's put up a pilot study in the Pentland Hills. And this is now started in March, and basically consisted already of several, quickly following up steps. So we have shown our results again, and they have brought it up to management, higher level management and the financing bodies of the SNH and the government and the local governments. And now we have had a stakeholder workshop in May. This is only a few weeks ago. And the aim of this, just to make sure we all know, the aim of the pilot study is to ensure that the Pentland Hills is suitable and equitable in its management of the park's natural assets. And then we had this workshop, where we mapped out the ecosystem services, where we prioritized benefits. Then I identified required ecosystems and landscape features that we needed to provide the benefits, and then also discussed potential threats to provide benefits over the long range. And I'm now showing just very brief, almost first, not results, but at least data that we got from that workshop. So we have here the areas which have been identified to provide ecosystem services. We have it separate for each ecosystem service that have been discussed, but I show now this is the provision, here's the regulating, and here's the cultural services map. And we can see that the provisioning services are mostly located more or less on the outer bound of the Pentland Hills, but with the regulating service and the cultural service, there's a strong overlap in where they occur. And it's, when you now just go back to our survey, we find it pretty striking that we have that strong overlap also to the results that we got from our visitor survey, where we didn't ask, please map out regulating, provisioning, and cultural service, but only which are the areas that you profit most, that you appreciate most, which give most benefit. So there's a high overlap in that. And as a very first, main message that we get out is the strong overlap, where we have mainly an overlap between the cultural and the regulating services, which is also to some extent a threat to each other, because a lot of visitors can decrease the amount of regulating service which is provided. Then we have, then when we talked about threats, it was very, at the bottom line, they really said climate change is not a big issue, and neither is a change of agricultural subsidies. These are not major threats. The major threat for our regional park is irresponsible behavior to the park. So I think, and they also have gave some indication on why people would behave so much differently now than they would have behaved 15 years ago. And part of that is this has been fueled by the use of electronic gadgets. So everybody's going out and using GPS and track their tracks, and they go everywhere, and they go in every weather, even in bad weather, that causes a lot of erosion on the tracks. And then there's a change of lifestyle, and then there was one big policy change in the meanwhile, and that is the Scottish Outdoor Access Code, which changed, of course it changed the right to people to go where, to access also private land, but in addition, it changed people's attitude towards using that land. Yeah? Beforehand, many people might have also gone over a private land, but they would have been more careful. They would have not felt like they have now the right to go there and then to possibly not not take enough care for the people who own the land. Yeah? And then there was the third, yes, I think what came out also was the one big action that is required to ensure sustainable provision of ecosystem services, according to that stakeholder workshop mainly, is that it's really to improve park management again, which is very obvious from what has happened over the past years when staff and budget have been reduced substantially. And I think that the main, you cannot read it because the color is very badly chosen, but the important, I think some people really said, no, only so many people are allowed to the park every week. We need to steer and really control these visitor flows very strictly. But I think there are more sustainable and more legal ways, more easier to implement ways to get to similar results by improving visitor information and education. And then the park managers themselves say, by using the right infrastructure, ensure the quality of the tracks are good enough that people just don't even think about not going on the track. You know, you don't have to tell them keep on the track, but you just have to make sure the tracks are good enough that they don't even think about doing something different. Then that would already help a lot. And finally, they thought then it needs a lot more ranges to actually control people's behavior. So after all, to conclude, I think the visitor survey has been very well received by management and also the public funding agencies. So people, management, and also the persons in charge of the Pentland Hills or any parks and have been really used the data to communicate the benefits of the parks within their funding agency to raise awareness and to inform people how much it's used and how much it's been appreciated. And then the first results of the stakeholder workshop, of course, visitors and stakeholders come to very similar hotspot areas. I think that is already, yeah, I've shown that. And then what I didn't show you really, the data is some visitors are a lot more open to more intense use of the park, maybe towards climate change, including the installation of windmills, and also for recreation. Whereas the majority of landowners and stakeholders, they are a lot more conservative, I would have said, yes? I think the park management is more progressive than many of the stakeholders. I think you're now coming to the bigger picture. I think the timing has been very good, and I think the collaborative network of actors around the Pentland Hills, and including more than just the people involved in the Pentland Hills, is very collaborative and very open to really use ecosystem service-based studies and also policy and management measures. And I think there was a lot of cross-fertilization between these actors. Yeah. And one thing I was very much surprised about, although as an age, as the Scottish Natural Heritage Agency organized this pilot study and funds it, the role of biodiversity and potential for conservation in the park is not that explicit. So it's to some extent very much on social benefits, on people's benefits.
Thank you very much.